Welcome to the Lauchpad. Welcome to the audience here in the press room and those following us on the live stream. We'll be launching here a journey without a map. This is the title of the New Generation Plantation new documentary, and for us, it is a title with two different meanings. The New Generation Plantations, it's a platform coordinated by WWF with the participation from plantation companies and government agencies. It shares learning and knowledge from the ground in a solutions-oriented manner. This documentary, it's a first experience for us in new formats, using different languages, trying to reach to new vehicles so that we can speak to new audiences, including the audience here attending this forum. The other meaning of the journey without a map for us is also that this is a first experience for us in East and Central Africa. New Generation Plantations, it's a platform with 10 years old of work, and we have never succeeded to work in this part of the world with such specificities in land use, socioeconomics, and the other aspects which relate with plantations, with forestry, and with landscape management. Yes. So we are here opening a new ground, and I invite you to join us on viewing for the first time this documentary, which will be followed by a conversation with two of the intervenants on the documentary, Martin Azimwe from WWF Uganda and Patrick Mugeni from New Forest Company. So thank you again and join us.
People have cut down trees because they need fuel wood. People have cut down trees because they need to construct homes. It is important that people do have access to forest and timber resources, but this needs to be on a sustainable basis.
As we go towards the development of our country, we need power. We need power to run processing facilities. We need power for different activities, most industries. We need power for home consumption. We need power in restaurants. Most of the things we are buying recently, they need charging. You need fridges, you need phones, everything is running on power. So power is basically needed in our day-to-day lives.
We have the land and we have the climate where trees can grow. Therefore, growing our own resources, import substitution, is just a clear case. Importing means we are spending precious dollars to bring in a resource that we can readily produce at home. Action is needed now. Action was needed actually yesterday in terms of getting people to invest in plantations, getting people to plant a tree, plant 2 trees, put up a small woodlot, and getting the national consciousness raised on the importance of maintaining the watersheds, of maintaining the biodiversity of our remaining few natural forests.
The whole process begins with the mother garden. I have got a fairly big mother garden of about 20,000 ramettes, and that's where we pick our cuttings. Whenever you come across a coppice with a plus sign, don't make it like a cross. That's what we call a good coppice.
I'm doing harvesting.
We raise about 500,000 seedlings annually. They are using a rooting hormone to stimulate the rooting. After 3 months, then they will be ready now for planting out into the field.
Plantations were very, very important to my upbringing. My family, my brothers and sisters, it was the source of our school fees. And so if you planted a belt of plantations around natural forests, you are in one way protecting the natural forest and directly contributing to tourism and to the wildlife therein. And even up to now, my parents have sold firewood, small bit by bit, but they earn every day. We have sold timber, and remember, we don't have a big piece of land. Our land is about 5 acres, and that's where we grow food, that's where we stay, that's where we have everything. In my village, a tree, let's say eucalyptus, of 8 to 13 years, ranges between 80,000 and 120,000 per tree. And if you can imagine, most of the school fees for average schools is about 300,000 to 600,000. So that means every term, 5 trees can pay fees for your child.
These forests are going to release the oxygen which is utilized by the human being for the respiration. This is our oxygen gas.
Very good. Can we clap hands for him?
Sandra, you run very fast and tell the warden to come and open for us the generator room. Being a rural-based school and far-to-reach school, we don't have power here. And indeed, power has been one of the highest, #1 challenge of the school. So this is the generator that we are using now. It is a petrol-powered generator. I've been here for 7 years as a school leader. We have managed to produce over 1,000 professionals. The ratio is about 1 to 8 learners, so it is very hard for the teacher to manage such a big number of learners on one computer. It becomes very hard.
I thank my father because he paid for me school fees. He paid for me from senior 1 up to where I am.
Yeah.
And he managed.
Yeah.
There may be other students at school that can't manage, but for us we are lucky.
Yeah, we are lucky.
You must be very proud of him.
Yeah. This is my home where I am used to live. I got a land title of this place. As a resident of this sub-county, we are having a problem of electricity, which would have been good for the company because it has all the potential to get poles, treated poles, and combine together with the government so that we can get electricity from Kasanda up to this place. We benefit and the company benefits, though the company can benefit through its sawmill. They utilize a lot of fuel, which is expensive. I'm also the outgrower of that community. But the problem is those middlemen bargaining. We don't get enough money from the company because the middlemen also want to earn some money from the what? From the grower. Yet he is the one who has suffered for the growth of those plants.
Ekitundu kyaffe wali ebukuya kubanga ekifo nkirina nga nsuubira nti nyinza okufuna miliyoni nga 2 mu miti gino.
The money he has gotten from this plantation is not what he expected to get. His expectation was that he would have gotten about 200 million. They gave him 13 million.
Naka petrol station kange kentandise wali bwe nagenda mu gundi yemu nengulayo pampu nina abaana bange ababadde bakamala university naye omunda muwadde omulimu nalwekyo ku lwekyo ndi musanyufu.
Buli lwe ngenda kimpa obudde okutunuulira omuti ogwo ndaba ettaaga ewaffe wennyini ewaka nafuba nnyo kuba ebeerako waggulu mugundi futi nga 3 nafuba nnyo okusaba eddala ndaba ettaaga eyo era nalaba nga New Forest Company nekindaga nti nange omukono gwange gutambula muki era neŋŋamba mama wange nti eyo ttaaga olaba eva mu miti gyaffe eri nanga muti gwammwe mulungi nnyo kuba giri simanyi emirala slogan abawunyira bubi oba abalumya embuto nanga ne mugaye gye gyaffe gye tukola ki gye tukola.
Investment in trees is a long-term investment, and an outgrower will often have challenges in the short term, and they need to access money. Under Forest for Prosperity, we're beginning to see some light because we have partnered with the Opportunity Bank in Uganda for them to provide financial services, financial literacy training, and loans to community associations, and we are discussing with them within that umbrella how outgrower trees can form part of that list of acceptable securities.
This machine, I got it in way of a loan through New Forest Company. And this helps us so much, even the community. And it has changed my life and even my family so that they get something for education and even to earn some other things as a family. And even the community comes here to get a good type of food because of electricity.
A kilogram of maize on a maize mill that is running on grid power is about 1/3 of the price that you pay when you're milling maize on a machine that is being running on a generator. And that immediate differential in price is reflected immediately in the price of that foodstuff at whatever locality you're in. And therefore the impact on basic rural households is of the absence or presence of electricity is something that is felt immediately. We want to see the change that we will see at Kirinya, at Waka Waka, where electricity has finally reached a landing site. We want to see that change, that opportunity, that transformation in Chikando as well.
We meet and share our challenges and cherish our successes. We support one another to stand the stress and stigma and the problems and all systems. We build our skills and values through crafts and games and talks we hold
planting trees is not a choice that can be debated. The country needs its forests. So it is clear that forests are a necessity for the country. It is not a luxury that we can easily import once things go wrong. I believe in it. New Forest is not just a job. I'm a Ugandan too. And not all of us have the luxury of getting on a plane and relocating somewhere else. So we've got to make things work here. You know, we have to make this thing work here.
Indeed, it's a bit more than only trees. It's about people. It's about transformed lives. It's about having a better quality of life. I think one of the recurring themes in the documentary was the need for access to electricity. Something that seems very basic and very simple, but for in our context is proving to be a challenge. We currently have coverage of approximately 23% penetration. Those are households in the country that have access to clean power. What that means is that the burden on our forests is significantly higher because there are few options, whether it's fuel wood, whether it's need for some other form of economic activity, cutting them down for timber, it's significantly higher. So we as private sector actors see ourselves as part of the solution in working to deliver value for money access to electricity grid expansion. So we work very closely with government, and we're one of the channels that the government uses to ensure that more and more of our communities have access to power. The second thing I'll touch on very briefly is the role that education plays. Education, access to meaningful education is also one of the critical bits that we need to cause communities to grow, to develop. And as a company, we're playing our role. Over a period of 9 years, we've been fortunate to partner with communities to build 3 schools and are actively servicing and supporting 28,000 students at any one time. And that we need much more of that. We need to bring more of that to our rural communities to uplift the quality of life. So the challenges are there, but I think there's also some light, and we are part of that light to bring about change.
Thank you, Pat. And Martin, you have taken us a personal angle into the story. Can you talk a little bit more from your personal view as well?
Yeah, my personal view and from the commentary was to encourage smallholder farmers, small land owners, that plantations or tree planting is still possible for them. Because in Uganda, the communities have always felt tree planting is for the rich. If you are not rich, then you are a government. If you are not a government, then you are a church. And I just wanted to bring that down by giving an example that households with small pieces of land, as small as an acre, can still do tree planting. There are certain things they can follow. They must ensure they are not compromising food security. That is why the concept of restoration using trees is important. Target degraded lands that are not, do not have productive value, agricultural production. I also wanted to encourage them. It is long-term, and one of the long-term challenges of a smallholder is education. So investing in plantations for a small landowner is possible if you are targeting, if you want the future of your children, to get fees for your children. I also wanted to encourage them that there are different planting configurations that will help a small landowner to achieve that. You heard me emphasizing, even if it is boundary planting, your 50 trees can educate your child along the boundary. You're not compromising food, you're not compromising any other. And that is the message that I still want to continue giving, that the small landowners should not be left out of this. There are other strategies that can be used to help them market. They can do group marketing, they can do cooperatives, they can do, the whole landscape could be targeted for that. But the whole encouragement is that we don't need to leave out small landowners. We need to change this attitude, that they change from thinking it is tree planting is for government, tree planting is for the rich, tree planting is for the church.
Thank you very much. And I think we have the opportunity to open the floor to the audience. Also, those who are online have the opportunity to interact with our interviewers. So, comments, questions? Yes, please.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Martin. And I would like you to extend my thanks to all the colleagues who contributed to construction of this story about Journey Without a Map. I think I've appreciated it, and you are communicating strongly about what we need to do when we are talking of restoration. When we are restoring, we know that there has been degradation.
Yes.
And now, without addressing the root causes and the drivers, you will restore, but your restoration efforts will be in vain. Therefore, interventions of tree planting, afforestation, sustainable forest management, restoration of farmlands should target the drivers in a holistic manner. It's not only about trees, it is not only about soils. It is about people, and you have to look at their welfare and their livelihoods. Sending children to school, having food to eat, being able to pay for utilities are some of those things which really make people appreciate life and also know that they are living a good life. So for all of us, whenever we are designing these investments, we should look at that and let them be as holistic as possible. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for your comment. You want to react?
Yes, I'll offer a brief reaction. I couldn't agree more. I think it speaks very well to the beginning of the documentary, where the first person that spoke, my colleague Alex Chabawampi, talks about the communities around the plantations where we are involved as New Forest Company. Over the years, we've worked with them to address some of the root causes that they face. How do we ensure that those communities are earning, that they are earning in a sustainable way, and that there's growth and benefit for them as well? There is a business benefit for us because there's security for the plantations and so on, but there's also a benefit for the community. And it's this constant move in that direction that I think lines up very well to the previous comments that were made. So we are aligned on that.
Yeah, just to add that while I was mentioning not to compromise other sources of livelihood, I was also cautious of that there are so many other factors that communities need in addition to trees. Trees is not everything, but it is a strategic investment, and it is something that a household cannot do without. I agree with Madam Commissioner that we need to be holistic in our approach, and I also think she was referring to private sector most likely, that because private sector has that advantage to address much more than tree planting, to help market for the outgrowers, because it's a temptation also that private sector can easily be a bit selfish and thinks I have outgrowers, but at marketing they should mind their business. I imagine she was also talking to you on that, maybe at another time. There's also about health, there's also about education, some of those that you've done, about infrastructure, and I think that will be good. So I just want to add to the Commissioner's voice that the private sector has a big role to play to bring up the smallholder farmers in a holistic way.
Luis, if I can, I think it's true. We do have a role to play, and we are happy to play that role. It would be interesting for all of us to note that the outgrower model that we currently run is something that we see as having big potential. As it currently stands, we are dealing with 5,500 outgrowers. We have helped them with supplies, with technical advice. The model is getting better, but as it stands now, we've distributed 7 million seedlings, and planting is happening. So we're getting to the more hairy bits of how do you guarantee access to markets? How do you manage expectations? How do you manage the process of limiting the role of the aggregators, of the third-party actors, and dealing more directly with these outgrowers? So that's what we're doing now, and I think it's important. There's really no question about it. I think it bears repeating that for private sector actors in forestry, we need to come at it slightly differently. It's not just the commercial motive. We must have a clear understanding of what's our triple bottom line. Are we looking at conservation? Is that an important part of what we do? And then obviously the role of the community. As it stands now, I think this is crystal for us. And we will need to work together. I think if you leave everything to private sector, there is a limit to which we can carry it. There's a lot of support needed from other stakeholders as well, and that's why these forums are really powerful, to get us thinking, to get us talking, to get us engaging with the issues, to get to a better place. Thank you.
Thank you. More comments from the audience?
Thank you very much. I would like to know how plantations can also contribute to conservation, and how you see your new model or new generation plantations fit into a broader forest landscape approach.
Thank you, Martin and Patrick. I think there is quite a lot of learning because plantations and looking at them as business enterprises is fairly new, especially for communities. I think it has been done by companies, but at the lowest level, this has still been something we are struggling with. And probably it's because if I'm looking at 15 years, we are not very used to long-term planning. Actually, Madam Commissioner, I think we plan for 5 years, then the next 5. So when you tell me I need to plan for 15 years, that looks like a very long time.
It does.
So it's encouraging to see that this is happening. And I think what we also probably need to encourage would be looking at also these trees, that the forests that we are restoring and the forests we are growing, as a pension. Most Africans are not in employment.
That's true.
I could be employed for 55 years, maybe in the public service. I mean, up to 55 years. After that, I have some small pension. But 80% of us are not in employment. So what becomes our pension when I cannot farm anymore, when I cannot grow beans anymore, when I have no strength to do that? So maybe that is the angle that we also as private sector should be pushing, that trees are also for pension. So I can start planting for my pension now. And that could be something that could push the agenda.
Thank you very much. Maybe I can just start answering Ermin on on the question on how does the new generation plantation model fits into the landscape approach and contributing to conservation. From a model perspective, so in theory, it is a landscape approach in itself, given it looks into the territory in a mosaic of different land uses. We don't apply this concept into pristine landscapes where natural ecosystems have been untouched. We only work on landscapes where human presence has been there for a long time. So assuming that there has been land use changes lasting in the landscape. And therefore, we look into combined solutions, as we have heard here, where the plantations, they can be part of the portfolio of land uses that the farmers and the companies, they can use. And we look into combine the small production scale with the private sector in order to achieve large-scale impact. And that's has been the main driver behind the new generation plantations, that we can work towards having impact at large scale, working on large landscapes, and therefore where we can combine the conservation, the production, and now with this very strong agenda on restoration, working also in terms of forest landscape restoration. But I'll give the floor to you.
I would like to add to what Luis was saying. And there is another good model that the government of Uganda has is promoting for smallholder communities, the poor communities. World over, communities adjacent forests and parks are poorer, are less advantaged than the others.
True.
But there is the collaborative forest management arrangement that gives 5% of the total forest area to the communities to manage. And it has been of help to avoid deforestation, to avoid deforesting natural forests, especially those natural forests that have grassland edges, where communities have been supported to plant fast-growing exotic trees and harvest them and have all the wood they need and the money as well as protecting the natural forest. So it is possible still with the smallholder landowners if the government policy allows it. That's an example of where a government targets a poor, a vulnerable community and allows it access to land, access to forest resources without degrading.
I think there was a comment around how to position this move to getting more people to plant. And I like the idea that it could be useful as a pension. We could attract more people as outgrowers and to participate. I think it's also helpful to remember that most households don't plan that long. And the need might be, the Ugandan phrase is mere ya lero. You know, what do I eat today? And that can really be a big one to try and overcome. But I wholly buy the idea that as part of a solution is to say, in addition to trying to solve today's problems, we must make sure that we secure tomorrow in some measure. Unfortunately, there are good stories. There are good stories to tell around how people have retired and relied on their woodlots to keep thriving, meet their needs and obligations. So they are good stories and we should build on that.
Thank you. Any further comment? Yeah.
Thank you. I know maybe, I don't know how you are doing your plantations, whether you are using one species. And if that is the case, because I know if you are talking about commercial, money, then you might actually be tempted to do that, because I'm one of those small-scale farmers who is using one species. And I know there is criticism against that, especially in Kenya, in terms of eucalyptus. And there was a very good case study that was presented during the AFR 100 in Ethiopia, where they are actually deliberately telling anybody who is doing restoration, you have to do 35% indigenous, 30% short-term or short rotation species, exotics, and then the rest is long-term indigenous species. I don't know how you're overcoming this kind of criticism or this kind of questions. It would be very interesting to hear how you're doing this.
Yeah. I think that's a very interesting comment. As it stands now, we, as the new forest company in Uganda, we're sitting on 22,000 hectares. Of that, we have currently 40%, but we definitely will ring fence 30% that will remain as conservation areas where you have indigenous species growing, and we just secure that. Of the commercially planted areas, we plant two main species. We're into pine, we're into eucalyptus, with various types. So we've experimented with different species of each. So I think we're not too misaligned on that. Our eucalyptus clone matures at about 8 years, and our pine we're looking at about 22 years. And so, yeah, you need to try and manage the midterm profitability, even as you wait out the first rotations on your more long-term product. So that's where we are. After a 10-year journey, we're just coming into harvest, and it's been a tough journey, but we are there. We're there. We're just about to break through. So I don't think we're too misaligned with the thinking from Ethiopia.
Yeah, cases from smallholder, we usually use a 30-70, 30 indigenous, 70 exotic, fast growing. But we are also lucky that for most of the smallholder communities, we have voluntary carbon markets that have supported that also, where there is a motivation for smaller landowners to do green carbon, plant indigenous or restore with indigenous, and they still get a reward from the carbon trade. I know some people think carbon trade is not possible, it's just political and just on paper, but the voluntary markets have worked, and Uganda has a number of case studies on that. The other thing is most of the restoration, again, like I said, the pilots are mainly around natural forests. So to protect the degradation of the natural forest. Right. So it's a belt that is protecting a natural forest. Yeah. So still there are many gains, because the other way would be without this, you'd still lose more of the pristine indigenous forests.
Yeah.
Further questions or comments from the audience? No? So I think we come to a close to the session. Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Patrick, for joining us. Thank you for the audience and those who followed online. The documentary will be available on the New Generation Plantation website and on our YouTube channel. So thank you once more.
Thank you.